Welcome, everybody. We are planning to talk for about an hour and then to leave some space for questions. In order to get what we prepared into an hour, we had to omit basically everything. Uh, but we put it through the juicer, and I think we have some fine nutriment to offer you this evening. We are omitting a lot of stories, and my heart is a little tender knowing that all of the people who have just showered us with blessings and love, in a way, are being omitted from this presentation because we just can't talk about them the whole night, though we will show you many photos of them, and picture's worth 1,000 words. So I hope that in some way pays back the wonderful offerings that they gave to us. What we're mostly hoping to share is what we distilled from all of this. It was a very beautiful, powerful experience for us that you supported us on. And now this is our offering back to you. Our subtitle is Close But Not Too Close. Kurt Holting, a dear friend of ours, was with us for about 3 weeks of this journey. He joined us like a hand in a glove, and all three of us walked by that bowl kind of like that. So our background, for those of you who don't know, we lived at Great Vow Zen Monastery in Oregon for a decade and were ordained there as priests. We had married. Can you pull up the thing on the phone so I can see the next slide? We married, and it was time to decide what the next thing to do was, and we envisioned this trip. I'm going to share with you the basic vision that we had in mind. As priests, we had taken these vows. This is the piece of the Zendo floor, of the meditation hall floor, that Gensei carved for us, cut out for us, to give to us as a talisman on our journey. Inscribed into it are 3 of our priest vows,
which we did. Gensei would have done a much better job, I'm sure, but we did our best to inscribe those words as beautifully as we could and to paint them.
And these were vows that we carried with us in our hearts as we left the monastery, embarking upon this pilgrimage that we envisioned. And simply put, the vision basically was, what if we just walked down the street and as we did so, got to know our neighbors, and then got to know the neighbors on the next block, and the next block, and in the next city, and in the next county, and in the next state, and in the next country. At the time, we were walking away from a very, very beautiful and powerful decade at Great Vow. One of the fruits of that decade was an offering that we had started together, wilderness session, meditation retreats that we did backpacking style. And it was something that I really wanted to keep doing, but Shinei was very intense. Nope, we're going to travel. And I said, okay. And to our great delight and our absence this last summer, Kosho and Kisei continued this offering, and all those who participated. So our vision was to pack up the necessities that we needed and to start walking. We had, that's a lovely rock, I'll say no more. We had married
in Mexico,
and we knew that it would be important for our next step to be something that we did together. We had contemplated briefly going to another monastery in Japan, but it didn't feel like the right way to serve our marriage. We did a trial run of the trip that we envisioned in California while our trip was being postponed.
because of COVID.
And it was a very beautiful experience, but it also didn't work for various reasons. Namely, we did it in Monterrey County, which was extremely expensive. And there's a lot of rules in California, a lot of them. We woke up one morning to a $200 camping ticket for sleeping in the wrong place.
Just on the side of the road.
Yeah. So we quickly decided that our vision was going to have to start a border down from us. So we imagined starting on the Mexican border. This is that same trip. What else will I say here? We viewed this as I'm going to go to the night before we left. We viewed this as
this is us with all of our stuff in Soten's mom's living room.
A journey of faith, trusting that people were basically good and that that's probably what we would encounter and that they would help us if they were things that we needed. And we wanted to travel in such a way that we would need things from them. So there were specific decisions that we made, bringing a smaller tent, not bringing a stove, small carrying capacity for water, that we knew would require our interacting with people on a very regular basis so that we could be connected throughout the journey. One final thing I'll say here is, two final things here I'll say are, people in our Sangha, in our congregation, suggested, well, if you're going to travel, you're Buddhists, why don't you go to a Buddhist country? Go to India, go to Japan, go to China, go to Sri Lanka. We felt that it was more important for us to go straight to our neighbors. That's who we wanted to meet and interact with first. So that's why we chose to go where we did, which was Mexico and continuing on south. Second, as someone who really has never been one to read the news and have been criticized for that a lot because I'm kind of ignorant about what's going on, I thought this was an excellent way to get the news, to just walk down the street and do so with eyes open and ears open and really see what is going on. Let's get the real unfiltered news of the neighborhood in the Americas. So we hopped on a train, and that took us to our friends here, Gwen and Mike in Dallas, whom we had coincidentally met in Alaska 2 months prior, and said, if you make it to our neighborhood, we'll be happy to drive you to the border, which was not close to them.
5 hours.
So they drove us to McAllen, Texas, and that's where our journey began.
So this was our approximate route here. We started in Monterrey, just below the Texas border, just about 100 miles below. For various reasons, we decided to skip over the border by 100 miles, so we took a flight to Monterrey, and we started walking from there. And we walked down through San Luis Potosi on the west side of Mexico City. That was our highest point. We were up in the mountains at 12,000 feet. It was literally freezing. And then which we did not expect in Mexico. It was very hot otherwise. And then we went down to Cuernavaca, where we did a session with Lucia and the Great Vow online Sangha, and visited Keith Dowman in Tepoztlan, and then continued down through Oaxaca City to the Oaxacan coast, and had a 3-week yoga training there in early January. So we started in early October of this past year, 2021, and then we continued down the coast into Guatemala, where we went up into the mountains, and we stayed in Guatemala for a couple months. That's where we found our puppy, Samaya, and we sort of nursed her back to health and got her vaccines before we crossed into El Salvador and Honduras and into Nicaragua. We stayed with a dear friend Susan in Nicaragua, and then came, who, if any of you know Kai at the monastery, it's Kai's cousin, Susan, who lives in Nicaragua. Then we went down to the southern coast of Nicaragua, and just recently, a couple weeks ago, came into Costa Rica, where we walked up to the mountains again to our friend Brian's. Many of you may know Brian from the monastery, to his coffee farm, where we have been ever since. And we're not done walking. We're sort of slowing down, and we plan at least to walk till central Panama, which will be a couple more months, where there's no safe land passage into Colombia. So we'll take a boat to Colombia and then plan to spend the next year or so in South America, we think, and without strict rules about walking. So we don't know how much we'll walk or not, and you can stay tuned on our Instagram. So this is what I titled the first section about our journey, the beautiful earth, simplicity, freedom, and embodiment. So one of the most precious gifts of this journey has and still is the natural beauty, the natural world. We didn't even plan our route to see the sights. We sort of planned our route to the next person that we knew and to the yoga training in Oaxaca. And yet we continuously found ourselves in these beautiful places because that's how the earth is. That's just how it is. I think wherever you go, there is the sky, and there is the earth, and there are the bodies of water, and there are the plants. So this photo was taken in central Mexico near Real de Catorce. And this was one of the most beautiful days of our walking. We descended down through this Dinotopia like mountainside all day, and there was pretty much no traffic because the road was too bumpy. So one of the reasons why I think we love these natural areas, why we are drawn to the raw earth and to the stone. This is just outside of Monterrey in La Huasteca Park. Why we're drawn to the water. This is in Nicaragua. The ocean. This is Oaxacan coast. And these great vistas and the trees. This is near Real de Catorce in central Mexico, the next valley over. Why we're drawn to the sky. The sky has been a constant teacher for us on this journey. And it's been so wonderful to just live under the open sky. Is because these places remind us of the expansive freedom that we are. They remind us of the stable presence that we are. We can't help but return to that stability, that expansiveness when we're in the presence of these great beings. And really we don't need a great mountain. We can find it in a pebble or in a little plant or touching our feet to the earth. And also this natural world calls us to be embodied, to be in the body. This is Diane Long. We learned yoga from her on the Oaxacan coast in Mexico. And Diane taught us so much about being in the body, about being intimate with the spine, about really feeling the breath, about listening to the connection with the earth and with gravity. So often we get caught in thinking and planning and worrying and regretting that we forget about the body. So many of us have lost touch with the body's natural wisdom, and we have so many ideas and shoulds and shouldn'ts for our bodies, and we spend so much time caught in thinking that we've forgotten how to listen to the body's natural wisdom, which is an extension of the earth's wisdom. Our bodies are made of the elements of the earth and contain its qualities: flowing, grounded, light, balanced, connected. So we took what we learned from Diane and we kept walking. And especially when the walking was difficult, when it was really hot, when there was lots of semis, when it was raining, or when our shoulders ached or our feet ached, or when we were nauseous or had diarrhea, then this experience, this practice of embodiment was a refuge. The direct experience of the body, of the posture, of the breath, of the feet touching the ground, and even the direct experience of the discomfort, becoming intimate with it without resistance, is liberating, is a refuge. In Zen, we have a dialogue that's been passed down for generations. And the student asked the teacher, "How do you escape hot and cold?" And the teacher said, "When it's hot, burn to death. When it's cold, freeze to death." So to become this embodiment, to relax into it until there's no longer any separation. And in a sense, we die. We die in that moment because there's no longer me and the sensation. There's just life. There's just this moment of life happening. And sometimes we would meet people who embodied this kind of body wisdom, this simple presence, who seemed like almost like an extension of the earth, like a rock or a tree. And often they were native peoples, or they were people who had worked close to the earth all their life, close to the raw elements. So this woman, Paula, we met in Oaxaca, was one such woman, and she let us stay in her barn. This is her barn. The donkeys are right next door. And this is her mother, Margarita. And in the morning, when Margarita was making her way over to the fire where we were sitting, she put a piece of cardboard on the ground, and then she started to fall, and we jumped up to try to help her. And then we realized actually she wasn't falling, that was her seat, and you can see the little piece of cardboard under her. That was her seat, and she said, "I have a headache, and the earth helps the headache." And in that small gesture, she acknowledged our deep connection with the earth and its healing power. So I'll just say that the moments of deepest satisfaction in this journey haven't been the great sights, and they haven't been the great places or the great people or the great food, which we've had so much of and have been so wonderful. But the most satisfying experiences have been the moments of deep presence, of deep connection with the earth body, with the physical body, with the presence of being that I am. And it could be on a noisy highway, it could be in a dirty alley, it could be by a garbage dump, or it could be in a vast vista or on a tranquil beach. But that moment of letting go is always liberating, is always liberating. And I'm just going to read one more little poem if I can. Did you see where that little card went? Oh, here it
I
is.
don't know.
So this is a poem that a friend just sent me by a Zen poet, a monk who did pilgrimage in Japan, from the book For All My Walking, Santoka. Each step is an arrival. Forget about past walking. Don't think about future walking. One step, another step. No long ago, no now, no east, no west. One step equals totality. Get this far, and you understand the meaning of walking Zen. So now we've come to our first slideshow, and all of our little slideshows for this presentation are set to Soten's music. So he wrote songs during our pilgrimage and we set the photos. So this slideshow is basically walking and beauty.
In the morning, through my window, in our bedroom that we carry together, zip it open to the mountain. I breathe in her air and it fills me up where I need healing. You. All the vampires in their shadows realize themselves no blood this morning. Sun cracks through the canyons. Listen up, did you forsake the morning sun? Something's begun. Time waits for no one. Everything comes from the light of the sun. All the children and their demons singing songs they've sang forever, holding hands with the mountains. They dance and dance around together. Something has begun. Don't begin what's not begun. Count your memories by the sun. Every day begins with one morning. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Taido, can you confirm that our audio is back on?
Mhm.
I'm gonna
Start.
keep talking. We'll find out if it doesn't work.
He says
Yes, he
yes.
says
Okay,
yes.
great.
Magic. Double yes. Faith and doubt. Big parts of life, inevitably big parts of this trip. This is a photo of a young gentleman bathing our hot dog who regularly needed baths on the hot highway. Faith and doubt. So as I said from the beginning, we knew that we were regularly going to need to ask people for help. And that's what we wanted. We needed food, we needed water, we needed shelter. We, of course, were traveling with money. We were well supported that way. But money only gets you food when there's a store or a restaurant. And there's not always a store or a restaurant. So sometimes we just had to ask to be fed. And we had the faith that we know we don't need to eat every day. And large gaps between meals are okay. As it turned out, we did eat every day. And there were large gaps between meals. Water was sometimes scarce. Frequently, we were very nervous at night about where it was that we were going to sleep, who was going to let us, who was not going to let us, whether we were going to be trespassing or not. It always worked out, obviously. Here we are. There really never were any big problems, so to speak. Really hungry at times, really thirsty at times.
We ran out of money once and couldn't get any more, but
anxious at times, kind of spitting at each other a little bit. But in terms of consequences, that's about it. We knew that we just had to be open and continue. I'm going to show you a prettier picture while I continue talking. Nicaragua is known as the land of volcanoes.
which we had no idea until we got there.
Oh my, big, vast, hot plains surrounded by these smoking volcanoes on all sides. Volcanoes and lakes. It's known as the land of volcanoes and lakes. Lake Nicaragua is one of the biggest lakes in the world. Massive, massive. But when these moments would come where we really don't know where the next food is going to be, Google Maps is very helpful. It's frankly flat out outstanding, astonishingly outstanding. But that little knife and fork icon on that map that's 15 kilometers ahead of you, and there are no other knife and forks on the map, may or may not be there. So there's some anxiety. But we would walk with the faith, even if it turned out it wasn't there, as sometimes it wasn't, that if we just kept walking, everything was going to be okay. It was a practice of saying yes to continuing, of saying yes to the fact that we are okay, there is not a problem, saying yes to each other, that our relationship is being fed by whatever it is that's happening right now. And saying yes to our feet that just did a fantastic job. Shelter. How did we find shelter? Before I go into that, let me talk about safety a little bit, because that's something that was on everybody's mind. Yeah, go ahead. It was on everybody's mind before we left. There was anxiety about the fact that we were going to be traveling through Latin America on foot, which is interesting because most travelers die in car accidents. but you know, being on foot it's a vulnerable thing. We were safe the whole time, but we were also protected the whole time. And we have to name that it became increasingly obvious to us that being protected yes, was basic humanity. It was people taking care of each other, and the beauty of that continues to warm my heart. But race was very much a factor, and also nationality.
There was a reason why we were in the back of this police truck for 3 kilometers, a dangerous area where we were passing by tons of other pedestrians.
This is my turn to tell
I'm
this
sorry.
story.
I'm sorry.
This was the only part of the trip that we didn't walk. We were given a ride for a 3 kilometer section. And for efficiency's sake, I'm going to kind of combine two stories in one here. Basically, we were reminded that we are Americans. And as Americans, there is a higher consequence if something is to happen to us. And the police is uniquely responsible for our well-being. And they requested that they give us a ride through this 3 kilometer stretch of dirt road where robberies happen daily. And we got a ride, and at the end, I told them I felt a little embarrassed. We'd already walked 2,000 miles without receiving a ride, and we got in the car, and they said, "No, no, 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 no. This is our job to take care of you, to protect you. We're so happy to have had this opportunity," and all my shame went away. To rewind a little bit, as I said before, our plan was to start from the McAllen border in Texas. On the other side in Mexico is the town of Reynosa. That year, backwards, rewind. That year, there had been a standoff in Reynosa between a cartel and the police, and civilians were killed. It just so happens that also that year, there was a shooting in my hometown of San Jose, California. Now, when I got on a train to go visit my mom in San Jose, California, no one said, "Gosh, you're going to San Jose? It's dangerous there." But when we were on our way to Mexico, we had that conversation with a lot of people. And I bring this up because a continual theme in our trip was, here is safe, there is dangerous. Here people will take care of you. Over there, look out. And this really continued in a number of different ways. Countries having this feeling about the next country, city folk having this feeling about country folk having this feeling about city folk. And it was something that we really had to learn to listen for as we would discern, is this a safe way to go? Is this not a safe way to go? Are people really speaking from experience, or are they speaking from rumor? And that is a skill that we developed over the course of this trip. When the time was right to really settle down and spend some time somewhere, we put the word out in Guatemala, in a rural town, that we were looking for a place to stay and looking for some volunteer work. While I was running one day, I met a wonderful man who offered us this rural cabana for a couple weeks. It ended up being 1 to 2 months, 6 weeks, I think. When we left, he asked us if we were sure we didn't want to buy some property from him. Maybe we should have, I don't know. This was our little paradise. I had to go down the hill and fill up buckets of water to carry up the hill.
Cooked on fire.
Cooked over fire. It was quite lovely. And it was in a mountain above a town where we made many friends, some of whom I hope are here tonight, but I don't yet know. Volunteered at a school, and I got to join a running group, which was really cool. Helped this woodworker daily. Eventually, we left the cabin and lived with him and his wife for a while. What else should I say here? No, let's skip that and let's go to the next section.
Okay, you ready for the next slideshow?
Yes, the next slideshow, another song.
So I'll just sort of say that we found a place every night. This is people would always give us places, and sometimes they would even call us down, like this family did, and invite us into their house and give us our own room. This is what we came up against in El Salvador. Many gang members were arrested right before we entered the country. And
since you put up this slide, I was going to skip this, but I'll talk about this now. So just before we entered El Salvador, there had been a mass shooting in the capital. 80 people were killed over the course of a weekend. It was a shooting by gang members on civilians. Very, very big deal. Most bloody day in the country for years. In response, the president issued a state of emergency and was arresting people at an alarming rate. 40,000 were incarcerated over the course of a month. As a result of this, many people in the country, both in El Salvador and neighboring Guatemala, felt all of a sudden El Salvador was an extremely safe country and they encouraged us to go. This, of course, is extremely controversial because, how can that many arrests happen that fast in such a clean way? Police were knocking on doors, searching cars, and several weeks later when we entered the country, they were still patrolling regularly, stop points all over the place. But to our surprise, the population was just elated. They were practically dancing in the streets like the wicked old witch had just died and now they were free and safe. That's not the whole story, of course.
As you can see, the conditions are horrible here in the prison.
Yeah. And there were people who told us they arrested my friend and they didn't do anything. But we're very glad that we did decide to go through this country. It was an amazing experience to be there when this fascinating piece of what will be history was happening. And to meet one more group of people that we otherwise would not have had the opportunity. Beautiful pictures, skip the story. That mug has got it made. And now another slideshow for your viewing pleasure.
Let me just read one of my poems real quick. So this is a poem about trust that I wrote a number of poems during our pilgrimage, which you can read more of on our blog, and as well as more of Soten's songs. This poem is called This Life is a Gift. Traveling through the inside world and the outside world, it's the same world. You can't bring anything with you. You can't know where you are going. If you want to be truly happy, you can only rest into it, join with it, resist nothing, want nothing, for nothing is guaranteed. Trust anyway. Whatever arrives is the right one. Welcome her like an old friend with kindness and curiosity. Who are you? It's supposed to be black, the screen. Who are you when all the plans, worries, and judgments have been suspended? What is this? An unending gift.
There's a deep fire in the heart of everything. and now you're on fire and you don't know what to do. But if you stay higher above the mess that's left inside of you, you'll see that this fire's better than the man that's burning. Keep on burning.
Uh-oh.
Keep on burning. Death comes when we stop
Maybe that just came in
learning.
twice.
So keep on burning.
You didn't answer?
There's a clear morning, and that it comes and that it goes. But if you listen for a while, the wind never stops, it blows. And it's a telltale warning to everyone and everything that there's a deep fire in the heart of everything. Keep on burning. Keep on burning. Death comes when we stop learning. So keep on burning.
Just a minute. Okay, I think you can hear me again, and probably a couple dogs too. Shinei did such a wonderful job putting these slideshows together. There's two more we're going to share, and I'm going to say a few words here about how I feel our view was expanded by this trip. Our goal, I think, was simply to expand our hearts by meeting different people, meeting different cultures. Can you pull up my slides there?
Mm-hmm.
And one specific thing I want to talk about briefly is immigration, because basically we were walking the wrong way down a one-way street for the last year. And we encountered lots of people on their way to the north that we really had wonderful interactions with. While we were in Mexico, we heard every kind of story about being caught trying to cross the border, about being arrested after arriving for criminal activity, to living and working in the United States for decades, raising a family, starting a business, paying taxes to the United States with that business, and then one day someone knocks on your door. A week later, you're back home in Mexico. So one question in my heart after having all of these conversations all of these interactions with people on their way to where we had just come from is as follows. I'm sorry?
Do you want to switch the slide?
What's the next slide? Yeah, sure. This was art I think we saw near the northern border of Guatemala. The search for the American dream isn't easy. It contains many risks. So if you knew that someone was willing to cross a desert on foot, walking by night, carrying their only water for 7 days, having offered their entire life savings for this trip in order to have the opportunity that you are having right now, how would it change how you viewed your life? So that's a question that I'm asking myself. People regularly asked us, why are you doing this? Okay, one more slide. So there it is. There's the American dream right there.
Espresso.
That's all we ever want. The American dream is drinking good coffee in Guatemala. This is a beautiful young man who was on his way to the States that we met in southern Mexico and spent the night with him. We still occasionally exchange messages on WhatsApp. I think one of the inspirations for this trip is, given how many people are attracted to this kind of culture that exists in the United States, that exists in Canada, and in many countries, and given that those countries are also the largest polluters on Earth, we kind of got a problem here. Everybody wants to make a bigger mess than they're already making. So this troubled my heart. This really troubled my heart because I asked myself, what kind of legacy do we want to live as a species? Life will outlive us. There's no doubt about that. When, where, how, who knows? But what will our legacy be? Fortunately, throughout much of our journey, there has not been elaborate systems like we have in the US to get all the trash out of sight. So we saw it. And here's a junkyard where a rancher took his cattle to graze, where villagers are in picking out things that they might use or sell. Okay. I'm going to skip the dogs. I'm going to skip the dogs.
And go to pollution?
Yeah. Hold on one sec. The byproducts of our existence are the products of our existence. From a big view, it's not like we can recognize what we intend to create and not recognize what we have to also create on the side. It's all our product. And what is our legacy as a species? In this picture, we're looking at it. I'm very fortunate that our trip really helped us expand our hearts ever wider. And that's what I hope for our species, that we can really do that and take in all of our byproducts and really see if this really is our hope for the earth. Are we really making this earth as beautiful as possible? Are we really taking responsibility for everything that we touch?
We've got dogs, we've got cars, we've got donkey.
Yeah. Street dogs all over the place. We now have one. She's great. But there were some dark moments. This is a dog eating another dog.
Puppy eating a dog.
So that's where the expression comes from. I didn't know. But there's dog eat dog. Junkyard dogs, I didn't know what junkyard dogs were. On this bridge, it took a second glance before I realized half the dogs I was looking at were dead. This is just a small portion of the bridge. Car exhaust, we breathed a lot of it. A lot. We were so glad we had our COVID masks when we walked through this 2-kilometer long tunnel. The day before, there had been a traffic jam, and a horse died, collapsed in the tunnel from the exhaust fumes, had to be carried out. There were many challenging parts of this trip, of course. Yes, breathing smog was one of them.
Doing math.
Doing math was not one of them. I got the opportunity to help this young woman with her math homework. I was so happy. Dengue fever was not the hardest part of this trip. Carrying Samaya was not the hardest part of this trip. Carrying Samaya in the pouring rain was not the hardest part of this trip. The hardest part of this trip was not getting along.
Aww.
When our relationship was bad, everything was bad.
And when our relationship was good, everything was good.
Yep, that's true too. Those are some lovely horses. I don't know why I included this picture.
Soten got a race in a race, and he got 7th place out of 1,000 people in Antigua.
Now you know that. I feel kind of good about that. So here we go. Relationships are primary. Relationships are really primary. An exemplar of this was a beautiful woman we stayed with, Francisca. We stayed with her for a week. We knew her for 2 months. She had 7 children. Every time she called one of her children, they picked up the phone. Those are some damn good odds. You know, we really have to take care of our life from the inside out. And that starts with ourselves. And next is our family and loved ones. And next is our neighbors. And next is our cities and counties and states. There's nothing any of us did in order to be alive. That's why life is called a gift. And nothing has ever separated us from the rest of our life except our own ideas. Therefore, the most natural way for us to live is with the best interest in mind for as much life as possible.
So this next slideshow is the difficult parts.
Oh, Susan with Samaya, she's such a sweetheart. Beautiful woman.
Speaking of relationships.
Okay, I'm done. Finishes off. What's the time?
It hurts too much
We'll probably start at 5
to
minutes.
tell you, but I'll say it anyway.
Yeah, I think
5 minutes.
I miss your smile. I miss you. Moving on together. Nothing left behind. Treasure store of living. Treasure store of mine. Digging down for secrets. Finding dusty bones. I'll only hear you clearly treasure store of living, treasure store of life, treasure store of getting older, treasure store of mine. Digging down, battle scars and slow dancing, singing out of tune. Get up when you're ready. I'm singing this tune. I'm on your side, but I'll never tell your story. Treasure store of living, treasure store of life, treasure store of getting older, treasure store of mine.
So, what do we do in response to all this suffering and to all this beauty? In Zen, what we have what's called the Bodhisattva vow. It's the vow to free all beings from suffering. And one of the outcomes of this journey is that this vow has really grown in us. It has been clarified, and it's what's sort of forefront in our considerations right now. How can we help? This is a painting that we would see throughout central Mexico, like everywhere. And I was looking at it and thinking, oh, this painting kind of sums up the Bodhisattva path in 3 steps. The first step is clearing out the heart mind. Is clearing away the delusion, is clearing away the greed, the anger, the hatred, the misunderstanding, the ignorance, and really letting the generous heart, the kind heart, the wise mind shine through us. And as you can see, Jesus is a spiritual badass. He has rays radiating out of everywhere. And Buddhism says that we can be too, that we have this potential.
Buddhism says that you are.
That we are also a spiritual badass. Maybe not Jesus, but a spiritual badass. And the second step after clearing is this recognition that happens when we clear, that it's not our clarity. It's a kind of humility. And see, he has his hand raised up to the sky because he's recognizing that this is a higher power. This is a deeper wisdom that's flowing through him. It's not his. And then the third step is to let it shine. To let it shine out in whatever way and serve the world. So this is Lucia. As you can see, she is a spiritual badass. That's why we cut ourselves out of the photo and highlighted her. This is a session we did in Cuernavaca with the Great Vow online community in December with Lucia at her uncle's house. And the practice of Zazen is so essential in our lives and has been a constant companion for us along this journey. It's the practice of sitting still in presence and really looking at and feeling, what is this? What is this moment? What is this pain, this suffering, this dissatisfaction? What is actually liberating? Really finding that, investigating that for oneself. This is us doing Zazen in our tent. Kurt took this beautiful photo one morning. Humility, we're still working on that. But, the more we practice, the more we see that it's not us, and that we don't really know what's going on. And we don't really know what's right, and we just need to get out of the way and allow wisdom to flow through us and let it shine. This is a photo of Soten that I took after a really hard morning of walking. I don't know, Camille, if you remember this, but you said, "Oh, I'm so glad you got pizza." It was that moment we did that video and we were like, "Pizza!" Well, we got pizza. That was that day in the afternoon at the pizza parlor. And it just so happened that Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was playing. And Soten started telling me about, how Charlie's family saved up all this money to get him one chocolate bar, and he started crying. And I was just so moved by his open heart and compassion in that moment. And so I snapped this shot. So now we're wondering, like, what are we going to do with this life energy, and are we using our life energy well? And some of the considerations we have is, how can we help? Should we continue learning Spanish? These are all my Spanish teachers in Mexico, in Guatemala, and in Nicaragua. I spent a week with each of them. Should we continue learning Spanish and about culture and about other spiritual traditions in order to sort of deepen our view and our understanding? Should we do a deep dive into retreat practice, or really start sharing the practices of meditation and inquiry with others in a direct way? Should we learn more about sustainability and really learn and practice how to live in a way that is beautiful for all of life? Should we help the immigrants? Should we raise money for or help the young in these countries in Mexico and Central America who have so much potential but aren't able to afford education? This is me teaching English for a couple of days in Honduras. That was super fun. So this is what's on our mind: how to be of service. And maybe we don't need to know. Maybe it will unfold in its own accord. I'm going to finish with a poem. This is a poem I wrote just at the beginning of our pilgrimage, and I added a little too recently. It's called "Don't Wait." This life passes quickly like falling rain. What will you do with it, and why? This beating heart, this relationship with God, this feeling in your chest, that plastic bottle in your left hand, that crying dog on the side of the road. To walk slowly and live wholly is not a given. Train yourself to listen like the trees and the animals do. Breathe intimacy into your bones. Don't wait until later to truly live. Don't wait until later to truly love. So here's our final slideshow. This is a small sampling of all the people that helped us during this journey, all of the bodhisattvas.
He drove us to caves. He was a preacher. He gave us a sermon, and then we sang or muted.
Can we remember that we can touch our living, opening our hands, reaching up to the sky? We all will find purpose if it lasts but a moment, opening to the wind in our hands. To those who may be parted, may we ride on toward teaching. We carry onwards where you did stand. On this journey of endless learning, walk with me, please, hand in hand. And if I could for a moment settle into this meaning, open worried hands so tired of clutching sand, may this one forever open you with its giving endlessly. Love the wind in your hands.
So we're going to stop sharing our screen now.
You turn the volume back up.
Mm-hmm. Hello. So now we can take questions or comments. We have about another 15 minutes or so.
We're going to scroll back and see who's here.
You can raise your virtual hand if you have a comment, or we'll just see them because we can scroll through here.
On the screen, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I'll just say, because this is kind of an obvious question, is what are we going to do next? So I don't know, but Shinei does. And what we're going to do next is be a little bit more open than we have been to points of interest, specifically educational opportunities, be they environmental, be they spiritual. And it looks like that will take us pretty probably down to the Panama Canal, at which point we're at a real decision in terms of continuing south to South America by water, or turning around back to the United States by means of other transportation.
So tell us your thoughts. Tell us your reactions. What caught your attention? Any questions you have?
Why does it say 22 there?
That's how many comments. Oh, let's look. We have 22 chats. Okay. Okay. Oh, we have some questions in the chats.
No, that's just things for us to read later.
No, there is some questions. How did you find that dog? To see if there's any more. Oh, such sweet. Thank you for all your sweet comments.
How is your Spanish?
Okay.
So the dog is real simple. Shinei had been trying to vacuum a dog out of the universe for about 6 months since we began.
I kept saying, that could be our dog. That could be our dog.
Right.
There are so many dogs.
Okay. Which really was not very hard because they were all over the place. A couple times she was on the verge of dog napping, but finally the right opportunity arose.
Dog napping meaning kidnapping, not like sleeping.
The right opportunity arose when we were walking down the street. We were passing a large junkyard that was filled with dogs, and there happened to be this tiny little black doggy thing wagging its tail and howling and whipping its body left and right, begging for Shanae to come over to it, and she did.
She was like 5 pounds. She was tiny and so sweet.
And then our trip changed completely.
Yeah.
So another answer is it was a young enough dog that we would have proactively decided we're going to let this thing die in order to not take it in, and we weren't ready to do that. Some other questions that I saw on the screen. One was about COVID.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, we kind of forgot about it for a while.
We have 2 hand raised too.
We would be reminded every time we came into a big city, but often when we were in the countries, it really was not much of a thing. We were pretty far out there in terms of rural. I mean, we're talking about little towns where there might be between 5 and 30 people living. So there, it was in the back of our minds for quite a while. favorite meal or most common meal that you had?
We had iguana mole once. That was the most interesting meal.
Here's my answer. So we stayed at a home with a man who one of his professions was to castrate bulls, and he prepared for us ceviche with
I'm
bull
sorry. I'm
testicles.
sorry.
And
This is a vegetarian group.
and it just so happened that I had my second round of intense parasites, and
He couldn't
it's
eat
the
them.
only time in my whole life that someone has prepared this delicious feast for
Huge
me,
meal,
and I
huge meal.
haven't been able to eat profound amounts of food in one sitting. I was so like my superpower
Soten's
was
a really
gone.
big eater. Somebody said, you said when your relationship was off, so was everything. What nuggets of wisdom did you learn from preserving, taking care, repairing marital harmony? You want me
Do
to
you want me
say?
to continue?
Oh, I mean, the most important thing is for me is just drop whatever I'm attached to and be kind. I mean, and that's with every human being. And like, so for instance, and like when I see irritation or stress arising, like really intentionally choose love. um, so today, like, Soten kept like at the last minute, so I'm in charge of the slideshow, and he kept at the last minute saying, "Oh, I want to add that slide. Oh, I want to move that around. Oh, I think I'm going to do this differently. Let's title the whole thing." And he's like changing everything at the last minute, and I'm like, but I just like, why not? Why not? Why do I have to say no? So I did, there's just this like switch that can happen from this to this. Yeah, so that's my.
Well, I try and remember that our marriage serves a larger function than ourselves, and I keep that
Hmm.
in my heart. I mean, inevitably, because everyone affects everyone else. So our relationship always has broader implications. And the other thing is, I feel like struggle is really a part of life, and Sinead disagrees with me about that. But 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 but
Sometimes.
but um, I really feel like it's vital that that we continue to feel like we're failing sometimes, and to not feel like we're progressing,
Mm,
um, but to continue to engage despite all that.
mm.
And my hope for the world is the same, that people have positive aspiration for the world, and from that positive aspiration, um, they engage the challenge of their lives, maybe not hoping for happiness,
Mm.
just really intending good out there. And then when things are rough, things are rough, and when things are flowing, things are flowing.
Yeah, that was one of my insights too, and I would say it like actually conflict is part of relationship, and that's okay, and that helps us grow. Let's do the two hand. The people have had their hand raised.
Sure.
Um,
Samaya is in great shape.
she's in great shape. She's still got a little deformity, but
She's a little funny looking in her wrists, but she doesn't mind.
so let's do.
There it says two hands
Yeah,
raised.
Claire's one. Then we have Ansui had her hand raised, but not anymore. If you want to raise your hand again, go ahead. And Heart of Wisdom has their hand raised. Okay, so Claire asked to unmute. Okay, I just asked to unmute you, Claire.
And I just unmuted. I am so grateful to be with you two tonight. It's so wonderful to be with your slowing down. I think that is part and parcel of this walking pilgrimage, was slowing down and there were so many pieces of wisdom you imparted, but I was so moved, Sotan, by your talking about what our intentions for our earth are, that people want to come here and participate in the economy that has really wreaked havoc with the world, as it has made some pieces of our lives better, but that I also love the juxtaposition of the killings in Mexico versus the killings that had happened in San Jose. Because the other thing I loved about your intentions going into this was deliberately making sure you had to depend on other people. And I thought, Americans are generous in some ways, world catastrophes, wallets can open. But it's much harder to see some poor looking person walking down the street in the rain and offering them a ride, and you raise so many reflections on our society that it's really going to enrich me for some time. So thanks for taking me along too.
Thanks,
And it's
Claire.
so good to see you both.
Good to
Love
see you
the
both. Good to see you too, Claire. Take good
music
care.
and the poetry.
Thank you. Okay, we have Heart of Wisdom.
Yeah, there was a beautiful question that just popped up on the screen, which was, how have your fears changed?
Let me go.
Sure. Let me respond to this question I just raised before we go to Heart of Wisdom, and then we'll do that next. The question was, how have your fears changed? We hope to cultivate a basic feeling of safety as earthlings on our home planet, Earth. And I feel like to a large extent we did that. I think we trusted that people would be basically good and kind, but we didn't know the extent to which they would be. A concrete fear that has changed in me is I watched over the course of this trip how I became increasingly comfortable asking people for help in a very humble, matter-of-fact, direct, human-to-human way. And I think doing that is a result of dropping my ideas about what other people are, who other people are, and just being willing to walk right up to them and find out.
I would just add to that I think what's changed is my ability to love my fear. That, the fear still comes up, like when it's getting dark and we don't have a place to stay, but I've learned how to turn towards it and welcome it more and question what beliefs are under there that maybe aren't true. Maybe, I'm not safe. Maybe I am. I need to know what's going to happen next. Maybe I don't. And sort of relax into both the sensations in the body and open to the actual experience instead of my imaginings about the experience. Okay, I think we might have time for one. Oh, we still have 5 minutes, so go ahead.
Heart of Wisdom. Share
Hi.
your heart.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
you can.
Oh, hi, Kisei.
Hi.
Good to see you.
I don't know if anyone else in here wants to speak, but I wanted to ask you, so in a lot of our eyes, you have been Instagram stars. You post every day, and that's how we've maintained contact with you, is watching your story unfold online. I've been at the monastery swapping who's read the most recent Instagram post and what's going on with Soten and Shinei this week. And I'm curious for you on your side, like, what was the experience like of being witnessed in that way? And did it even really come up? Because social media is a big part of our lives, and I'm just been curious about this aspect of being witnessed. And here we all are witnessing you, and I'm enjoying that. And I'm curious if that thought has even crossed your mind as you've contributed so much sharing and vulnerability via the internet.
Yeah, you go ahead first.
Thanks for the question, Kisei. Wonderful to see you. The first week of our trip, I kind of turned a blind eye to Instagram while Shanae did her thing with her cell phone, and then it kind of switched, and I fell in love with it.
You wouldn't let me miss a day. I was like, we don't really have to do it today, do we?
It was two things. One is it was a beautiful homework assignment because it kept me paying attention throughout every day. What am I actually learning here? What's growing inside of me? What's changing? What am I observing that matters, so that I could then distill that at the end of the night in a real, honest way. And then to sit down at the end of every day and wonder what actually happened. What actually happened today? And the reason, and this is number two, the reason why that was so powerful was it was something for others, and we had feedback coming back towards us. We had evidence that these things were being read, and people were responding and giving us responses. So then there was inspiration to continually be real and authentic and attentive and perceptive and as wise as we could be. And it gave meaning to our experience because we were doing it with other people the whole time.
I felt like one aspect of it was there's a sense of being held accountable a little bit. Like okay, am I really living in line with sort of my deepest insight and integrity? Because it's like being in a sangha, and the sangha sort of holds you to that. But I mean, some of the normal like ego things, like I was so happy to get a new follower, I was like, we got 100 followers. Oh, now we got 200 followers, and there was something about that. And I could see how that's sort of, that praise can be sort of addictive in a way. And that maybe that's one of the difficult parts about social media. But for me, I really felt like, I just want to be as honest as I can and just show myself as I am, and it's okay. And like I pray it's okay what people think of me, and I pray that in some way it's inspiring to them. Like that was really like the deepest sort of aspiration in that what I write, that what we post will somehow help each person who reads it to open to some aspect of themselves. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Beautiful to see you both.
Beautiful to see you too. I saw two more questions come up across our screen. While we're in Portland, is there anyone in the room there that wants to ask something?
Hi, my name is Maisie. I have a question. I've been thinking a lot about ethical travel, particularly as I think more about traveling and maybe internationally. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how we travel ethically.
Well, I think you should travel ethically. Um, I appreciate that question. And in order to answer it well, I think I would need to know more about you. And if you're planning a trip, then maybe that's something that we can dialogue about. There's so many views about right and wrong right now, and our own culture is quite fractioned by that. It's sensitive. The most important thing is, of course, clarity within your own heart and moving from there.
Contact us if you want to we can have a longer conversation about that if you'd like.
Okay, sounds good.
Two questions I saw. One from my brother was, any notable experiences with travelers that you came across along the way? There's of course the motorcycle boy, but I thought about talking about the missionaries.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Who's the motorcycle boy?
I forgot his name. There were two Mormon missionaries that we became friends with while we were in Guatemala, and young women who were taking their time abroad, as is common in their tradition. And we met with them several times to talk about functioning as a religious person out and abroad on the streets, to talk about the meaning of religion in a person's life, to talk about the function of spirituality in a person's life, and to learn more about this tradition that the Mormon Church has of sending young people abroad to spread their religion, yes, but more importantly, in our eyes, to be of service to people in different parts of the world. And we were extremely impressed with these two individuals, how they carried themselves. Their schedule was extremely robust. They were, yes, traveling, but this was a heavy-handed service-oriented travel, and we had a lot of respect for these women.
Their devotion was absolutely amazing, and we had a number of multi-hour conversations about religion with them, and it was just so beautiful, their hearts. And then we met another guy who he's setting a world record for the smallest motorbike to travel around the world. He's in East Timor. He just met with the president there. We've been following him on Instagram. He's called Ride That Monkey. And he was quite interesting.
There's a beautiful story about him that I'm just not going to tell here. I'm sorry.
But look at our Instagram, because that story is on there, and he has
it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And so
another question that was there was, how has passing through Christian cultures affected your Buddhism?
Yeah. Well, we're wearing these. We
It's affected our choice in jewelry.
You know, we never really, I personally never really sided with Buddhism. You know, I just kind of found myself to be a Buddhist because I was really interested in the practices of meditation and self-inquiry and ethical living, and it made sense to me. But I think all religions are really pointing to the same thing. And so I don't mind using the word God, you know, to refer to Buddha nature or Prajna wisdom. And so I think, but it's kind of expanded that capacity, I think, to really see the lens through the Christian language and view.
We visited and observed lots of different Christian missionary establishments in different countries and different areas that were really not proselytizing. They were just in places to offer something that was needed in the community. And that was very, very beautiful to me. Christianity, I feel, is really known for outreach in that way. And that's an ideal of being a good Christian, is being philanthropic and generous in body. And that was very inspiring. It was very inspiring to me. And the other thing I'll say is, it was such a religious culture that almost never would we part ways with someone we had spent more than 5 minutes with without receiving a prayer from them. May God bless you on your journey. May your feet never tire. May you be cared for. May you be safe. May you be well. May Jesus protect you. And
may God protect you for me. That's another one.
And I felt like that was a very beautiful thing, to know that people had us in their hearts in that way, and that their connection with God was really bringing them to live in prayer. That was very inspiring.
So we better end. We're a few minutes over, and we will look and see. We will look and see what other questions there are written here, and we'll answer them on our Instagram. And if you have any other questions for us, you can write us on Instagram or on email, and we're happy to. We reflect almost every day there. Otra pregunta fue ¿cómo está nuestro español? Y la respuesta es más o menos. Soten mejor que yo. Our Spanish is coming along okay. Somebody asked how it was going. And Soten's is better than mine, but it's coming along. We can communicate.
So I do feel like it's time to close. If there's a final dying question, someone can put it out now. But
or comment.
Otherwise, can we go back to seeing the
whole view?
Yeah.
Okay. Here. Okay. Oh wow! Oh look it. There's Alex.
Now
there's Mom. There's
we can see you for the first time.
We couldn't see. Oh wow! Oh, there's Dad and hello.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your support.
Shane. Yes, Raul.
The answer is yes, please.
Roshi has a question.
Masato.
Hello. I'm sorry. Shane. Stephen.
We can't.
How do we? Oh, we have to request your unmute. Okay, sorry, we were just busy admiring
we have
everyone.
To do that?
Because we're the host.
We're the host.
So participants.
Sorry for being a bad host.
Where are you though? I can't find you.
In Great Vow.
Great Vow. Oh, love you too.
Love you too.
Great Vow.
They can't do it. We have to.
I think that's true. Okay, I asked them to unmute.
Oh, hi guys. Someone just handed me the microphone and said, say something.
Oh, okay.
So
I know someone who does
great job. Nice Dharma talk. Nice, beautiful images. Very inspiring. You've touched everybody's hearts, and keep up the good work. We look forward to seeing you in person sometime. Much love.
Thank you. Thank you for your support, Roshi. Thank you. Much love to all of you. We're scrolling through here to see all of you, to look into your eyes.
Susan,
hey,
Calvin,
Mike.
Mikey.
Love you, buddy.
Oh, Elena.
We're carrying you in our hearts. We'll be in touch. Please reach out whenever you want. And may the function of our lives be for your well-being.
Oh. Okay. Love you. Good night. Blessings to all. We end with a song.
There was a request to end with a song.
Oh, end with a song. End with a song. He doesn't have his ukulele with him, but you could sing something.
May you dwell in the heart. May you be free from suffering. May you be healed. May you be at peace. Much love. Take good care.
Good night.